welcome to another episode where we dive into the Grimm's fairy tales. It has been a while, but we are back now. So today's tale is entitled The Four Skillful Brothers, because why have one when you can have four? It was published in the second edition of the Children's and Household Tales by the Brothers Grimm in the year 1819, and the source of this tale came from the family von Haxhausen. Now there's a supervillain name if I've ever heard one. And the source of this was probably August von Haxhausen, as he studied law at the university with his good friend Jacob Grimm. Our tale opens with a poor man, as it usually does, who had four sons. And when they were grown up, he told them that they had to go out into the world as he had nothing left to give them. They should go on the road, travel to foreign lands, learn a trade, ultimately get off the backside and stop mooching off of him and earn their own money. So the brothers prepared for their journey and said goodbye to their father and left altogether. Before long, they reached a crossroads and they decided all to part. They each went down a different road, and they agreed to meet again at the crossroads in 4 years' time. The eldest brother met a man on the road who asked him where he was going and if he wanted to learn a trade, and he would turn him into a thief. There should be red flags aplenty right there. To his credit, the brother said no, that it wasn't an honest trade and that he didn't want to end up dangling at the gallows. The man said not to worry about that. Don't worry. Just steal things, you won't hang, trust me, I'm a stranger. But he said not to worry about that, and he would teach him how to take things that nobody else can touch and how to do it without getting caught. That was good enough for the eldest brother, so he was trained as a thief and became so good at it that nothing belonging to anyone else was ever safe if he wanted it. We've got an upstanding fairy tale citizen right there. The second brother met a man on the road who asked him the same question about what trade he would like to learn. And the brother said, "What did you have in mind?" And the man invited him to come with him and learn to be a stargazer. That nothing beat that as a trade, as no one would be able to hide a thing from him. The second brother liked that idea, as I suppose many people would, and agreed. When he had completed his apprenticeship, his master gave him a telescope and said that with it he could see everything that happens on Earth and in the skies, and nothing would ever be hidden from him if he wanted to see it. A hunter took the third brother under his wing and gave him instructions on all aspects of hunting. And as a farewell gift, the third brother was presented with a gun, and the hunter said that with it he would never miss a shot of the target that he wanted. The youngest brother met a man who asked if he would enjoy working as a tailor. The boy answered that he didn't want to spend his days hunched over a needle with his eyesight going. And the man replied that the boy had no idea about tailoring and that with him he would learn the trade in an agreeable and respectful way, and the work would bring him great honour. So in other words, shut the hell up, you don't know what you're talking about, and respect my trade and I will teach it to you. The younger brother agreed with this and learnt about tailoring from the bottom up. There's got to be a pun in there somewhere, there just has to be. When his training was over, the man gave him a needle and said that he could use it to mend whatever he wanted, whether it was as soft as an egg or as hard as steel. It could mend things without a seam showing. So with all these apprenticeships giving all these wonderful gifts away, why didn't they keep them and make their own money? But it's a fairy tale and I digress. So the 4 years go by and the brothers met at the crossroads and went home to their father. It doesn't say that they made a lot of money to bring home. It doesn't say that they took anything home apart from these skill sets that they all just learned. The brothers explained to their father and each other each the trades they had learned, and they were sat outside under a large tree in their garden, and their father said that he was going to put them to the test. Not that he didn't believe them or take them at face value or anything like that, but he wanted to test them, to see if they weren't just feeding him a crock of bullshit. He looked up in the tree and saw that there was a bird's nest. Well, it is a tree. He asked his second son how many eggs were in the nest, and the stargazer took out his telescope and said that there were 5 eggs. The father turned to his eldest son and asked him to bring all the eggs down without the mother bird, who was sitting on the eggs in the nest, knowing. The son accomplished this and then put all the eggs on the table. The father moved each of the eggs into a different corner with one in the middle and said to the hunter, "I want you to break all the eggs in 2 with only a single shot from your gun." The hunter took aim and broke them all with a single shot. The story gets around this feat by saying that he must have owned some kind of powder that went in the gun that can go around corners and not disturb the mother bird in a nest to realise that the eggs were gone in the first place. Now the father turned to his youngest son and said that he wanted him to mend the eggs along with the chicks inside so that the shot will have done them no harm. Yeah, because blasting a load of eggs really doesn't hurt what's inside of it. But the tailor took out his needle that could mend anything he wanted and did just that. The thief then put the eggs back under the mother bird in the nest without them knowing, and when the eggs hatched a couple of days later, the chicks were fine, and each of them had a red ring around their neck where the tailor had stitched them back together. If we just take that point just out of context, so these were some eggs. They shot them, broke them all, and then stitched them back together, and now the little birds have a red ring around their neck. Not long after this, there was a great uproar across the land, for the king's daughter had been carried off by none other than a dragon. The king announced that whoever rescued her could also have her as their bride. Pretty standard for a fairy tale. If a princess needs rescuing, they usually get carted off in marriage the moment that they're rescued. The 4 brothers talked about it and decided that they would use their trades to rescue the princess for the king. The stargazer looked through his telescope, found the princess. She was sat on a rock far away in the middle of the ocean, and right next to her, protecting her, guarding her, was the dragon. So the brother went to the king and asked for a ship, and the 4 brothers sailed across the ocean until they reached the rock. Nowhere does it say that they were any good at sailing. The princess was right where he had seen her, sitting on the rock, and the dragon was fast asleep with his head in her lap. The hunter said that he dared not shoot, as he might hit the princess. And yet a few days before, he had powder that could go around corners and could shoot whatever he wanted. That flew out the window. Also, it doesn't mean that the princess actually wanted to be rescued with a dragon's head in her lap. It might have been a pet. And she was sick of the king. So the thief said that he would try his luck instead. And he tiptoed over to where they were sat and stole her away so nimbly that the dragon just kept on snoring and didn't notice. They all rushed back to the ship and headed for the open sea. But the dragon woke up, found that the princess was missing, and raced after them, snorting angrily. Now that's either a dragon whose prey has just been stolen, or it's a dragon whose owner and mistress had just been stolen from her by 4 miscreants. I leave it up to you to decide that one. The dragon hovered over the ship and the hunter took aim and shot it right in the heart. The dragon was killed instantly, but was so huge and powerful that it smashed the ship to splinters on its way down. Because of course you're going to shoot something that's directly above you and not to the side, either side, and what did you think was going to happen, really? The brothers salvaged a few planks Titanic style, and they all floated aimlessly on the waters. Now, can you imagine what the princess is thinking at this minute? If we go with the narrative of the story, she's been stolen from her home by a dragon. She's been plonked on a rock in the middle of the ocean, and the dragon's fell asleep with its head in her lap. 4 strangers rock up in one of her dad's ships. One of them steals her away without the dragon noticing. They all run down to the ship, wake the dragon up, and then once they're out on the open sea, another one of them shoots the dragon when it's right above them. The dragon comes down, the ship gets broken up, they nearly drown. I mean, she's got to be thinking, what the hell? Really? These are the 4 that came to rescue her? No knights, no nothing.
Oh, you were expecting Prince Charming?
Well, yes, actually.
Miraculously, the tailor took his needle and sewed the wooden planks back together. Then he got on the raft he had made, I'm assuming that the other ones were still floating about in the water, and collected all the parts of the ship and sewed them all together again, so that the ship was seaworthy again in no time and they could head home safely. I would love to see it. When the king saw that his daughter had been returned safely, he was overjoyed and said to the 4 brothers that, only one of them could marry the princess. Bigamy was not a thing. And they would have to decide amongst themselves which one it was going to be. He didn't even ask the princess which one she wanted to marry, although her silence speaks volumes. So, of course, a fierce quarrel breaks out between all 4 of them as they all made a claim on the princess. Probably not just the princess, as she was the king's only heir, and on his death they would inherit a kingdom, so they weren't just doing it for love. In fact, love isn't actually mentioned anywhere in this tale for a start. And so the stargazer said that if he hadn't spotted the princess sitting on that rock with the dragon, they never would have found her, which is true. The thief said that his vision would have been absolutely useless if he had not been able to steal the princess from the dragon, because, you can look all you like, it doesn't mean you're going to get anything. The hunter said that they would all have been torn apart by the dragon's fiery breath if the bullet had not hit its mark, failing to say that because of him the ship was destroyed. The tailor said that if he had not used all his skills to repair said ship, then everyone, including the princess, would have all drowned in the ocean very, very slowly. Good points made by all, and actually showing how incompetent they all are. The king decided at this point that he had had enough of their argument and said that they had all had just arguments, but they couldn't all marry his daughter, so none of them would marry her, which is an easy way of getting out of 4 different miscreant peasants marrying your only heir and inheriting the kingdom that you've worked hard for. But he would reward them, each of them, with half a foreign kingdom. Which, if you think about it, is quite savvy, because these 4 reprobates rock up, rescue your daughter, then start arguing about who's going to marry her and inherit your kingdom when you're dead. Meanwhile, his daughter, an only heir, doesn't make a sound. They almost caused her to be burned alive by a dragon and then drowned, and she still doesn't want to marry any of them. Not only that, but he rewards them with something he doesn't actually have. A foreign kingdom is not his own. In fact, 2 of them. And they don't clock onto that fact. And they don't get any reward money. They just get the promise of half a foreign kingdom each that they would probably have to fight tooth and nail for, because it's not a kingdom that the king actually has. The brothers, however, listened to this and felt satisfied and said that the king was right. It's better to have nothing than set them against each other. Literally decided bros before hoes. And they each went home to their father and lived happily ever after. So at the end of this tale, we are back to square one with the 4 brothers living rent-free in their father's house, and they each have trades, but it doesn't actually say that they put them to any use. They don't get a princess, they don't get any money, they get a promise of a foreign kingdom if they want to go fight for it, and all for that, for going out on the ocean and rescuing a princess from a dragon, and they get nothing for it. And that is the end of our tale. I would say it's a happy ever after for everyone except the father, who still has the 4 miscreants under his roof and not paying a penny. The princess doesn't have to marry someone she doesn't know, still inherits a kingdom, can marry who she like. The king doesn't have to have a son-in-law that's poor. And the brothers have a trade each that they can utilise to either make money or steal money, or just be douchebags if they want to be. So let me know in the comments down below which trade you would have chosen. And as always, like, comment, please subscribe, and I will see you all next time.